Coming up on Lawmakers, the Senate passes $1 billion corporate tax break. Consumer advocates rally at the Capitol in support of legislation that would reduce interest rates on car title loans. And impassioned debate in the House over a bill dealing with moving Medicaid into managed care. Those stories and more are next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Thursday, March 3rd.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy Lawson.
And I'm David Zelski, filling in for Gerald Bryant.
Well, as also on tonight's broadcast, the Senate passes a bill that will make getting a divorce in Georgia a longer process for most.
And a controversial bill that would set a school start date gets a hearing in House committee. But our top story tonight, progress on the 05 budget. Final passage of the mid-year state budget could come tomorrow. House and Senate conferees have agreed on a compromise version of that $16.6 billion spending plan for the remainder of the current fiscal year. A press release on the agreement highlights video equipment for 38 child advocacy centers to be used in abuse and neglect cases, money for more crime labs to reduce a backlog of cases, tax relief for property owners, and additional spending for the ports in Brunswick. Also, the House and Senate are already working on their versions of the FY 2006 budget based on Governor Perdue's budget recommendations.
Well, the House today voted to increase federal contributions to the Indigent Care Trust Fund through collections from some insurers. House Bill 392 would allow the Department of Community Health to collect and manage the assessments in order to qualify for federal grants. But debate arose over whether the plan would reduce the level of care for some patients and whether it was based on a sound business model.
Yesterday, it's my understanding that we finally got the RFP for disease management out there. That, to me, and this is a little task force I headed 2 years ago, is really exciting in terms of savings. And again, it improves health care outcomes. And again, the budget that you're going to be asked to approve tomorrow shows $15 million of savings for that net of cost. Remembering that we're only going to be starting into it in 06.
This model takes the healthiest population that incur the least cost to our Medicaid budget and allows the private sector to bid on covering those lives, while our most disabled, ill, and high-cost sector, we as a state keep. It seems like a very good deal for the private sector and maybe not such a good deal for the taxpayer dollars.
Two things, and these are repetition of what I've already said. One is, if the state does not have a savings, we're not going to go forward with it. And we won't know that until the bids are back in April. Number two, 42 states are already in some type of care management arrangement. We're about the last to get there. Every major metropolitan area in the United States, with the exception of Atlanta and Chicago, have been there. We all, call into play TennCare. TennCare is a disaster. But one of the things the state of Tennessee did is they took their total uninsured population and put it in with Medicaid. It was doomed to failure from the start.
Representative Brown said that this legislation would not result in any loss of insurance benefits. House Bill 392 passed by a vote of 143 to 22 and now moves to the Senate.
The Senate today passed a bill restructuring Georgia's corporate income tax. Senate Finance Committee Chair Casey Cagle moved to engross the bill, meaning it could not be amended. That motion brought some harsh reaction.
This badge says I was one of 56 people sent up here to vote on the floor and have debate. We're not doing that. I wasn't in that committee to hear the debate on it and understand the bill. This is wrong.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, tax bills have always been engrossed. It's always been the practice. There's nothing new here. And to say that this is some giveaway bill is absolutely erroneous. I am astonished that you can cry foul on this particular issue.
The motion to engross was successful, and Senator Cagle said House Bill 119, which provides tax breaks for corporations, would result in more jobs and more tax revenue for Georgia. Cagle said the tax measure would help keep companies in the state.
After all, if we really are serious about jobs, and if we are serious about the economic development opportunities that our state faces, then why should we tax at a disproportionate amount job creation and investment in our state? If we want to retain Georgia corporations here in Georgia, what can we do? And that's really what we sat down this summer and talked about, and we looked at. And we said, what can we do to help Georgia companies stay here?
Senator Emanuel Jones said if the legislation did not create more jobs and keep and attract corporations, that Georgia taxpayers would be burdened with making up $1 billion in lost revenue.
It's a bad deal for the citizens of this state. I think if we're going to sit up here and raise their taxes, I think we should be man and woman enough about it to tell the citizens of this state that we're going to raise their taxes over $1 billion in some 10-plus years. To me, this is corporate welfare.
Senator Steve Thompson said he was in favor of tax breaks for businesses but wanted to amend the bill to require the Revenue Commissioner to document the effects of the bill. Engrossing House Bill 191 prevented the Thompson amendment from being offered.
So why not ask the Revenue Commissioner and business to furnish the information on how many jobs they have grown from the time of the implementation of this bill until the end of the period, which was 10 years on which the figures were based? What could be wrong with that? I've watched mega corporations, one after one, come in this Capitol and get their way almost without question. I'm getting to the point where every evening when I go, I turn around and check the gold on the dome to make sure it's still there.
House Bill 191 passed 43-10. It goes to Governor Perdue for his signature.
Today, a Senate Banking Subcommittee heard testimony for and against a bill that would change the title loan industry in Georgia. Supporters of Senate Bill 198 want tougher regulations on companies that issue high-interest loans against car titles. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live from the Capitol with more. Jesse.
Thank you, Wandy. Senator Steve Miles sponsors SB 198 that would change maximum interest rates on title loans from 300% to under 60%. Proponents of the legislation held a rally today to drum up support for the bill. Participants included the American Association of Retired Persons as well as Georgia Watch, the consumer group that fought so hard last session to pass payday lending reform. The consumer advocacy group Georgia Watch wants to curb the process of title pawn loans in Georgia.
Title pawn lenders can charge up to 300% APR or annual interest on a small loan, whereas other small lenders in business in Georgia are held to a 60% APR cap under the Georgia Industrial Loan Act.
Georgia Watch and the AARP backed legislation authored by Senator Steve Miles.
It is not a Democratic problem. It is not a Republican problem. It is a problem for the people of Georgia.
That legislation was reviewed in a Senate Banking Subcommittee today where members heard from both sides of the issue.
The way in which this industry works takes undue advantage of very frail and very vulnerable people.
They're willing to walk into our offices, read the contract, sign the contracts, take our money, and we allow them to keep their car as a convenience, the pledged collateral. But if they don't repay, our only recourse is to repossess the vehicle.
The subcommittee did not vote today, but Chairman Ralph Hudgens says a vote will come soon. Georgia Watch says people are suffering and the issue should not be put on the back burner.
It's pretty obvious that Georgia consumers are suffering under this bill. They're suffering under exorbitant interest rates like 300%. They're also losing their vehicles, which are a lot of folks' only transportation to work.
And members of the title loan industry vowed to fight HB 198 and were lobbying members of the full Senate Banking and Finance Committee this afternoon. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Jesse.
Many divorces would be delayed under a bill passed by the Senate today. Senate Bill 25 is sponsored by Senator Mitch Seaval.
It will extend the waiting periods for an uncontested, no-fault divorce to 180 days if children are involved and 120 days if no children are involved. If there are children that's part of the family, there will be a workshop that will be required. It's a 4-hour workshop that basically helps to prepare the couple with the effects of divorce. There's many of these workshops already available in every judicial circuit. Thank you, Mr. President. The Judiciary Committee worked in another additional item in allowing someone to petition the judge to waive the waiting period if there's a case of domestic violence by issuing a confidential affidavit that the judge could review.
Senator Seaval said states with longer waiting periods had fewer divorces. Senator Steve Miles said the bill was nothing more than government meddling.
Here comes the candy man, trying to entice us to believe that we're so family-friendly and that we believe in family values. Well, I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that I have sat here nigh all these days watching us pass bill after bill after bill that has nothing really to do with solidifying families, but has everything to do with making the rich richer and taking care of the well-heeled and the greedy.
Senate Bill 25 passed by a vote of 36 to 17 and goes to the House.
Supporters of the Georgia Smoke-Free Air Act held a press conference outside the Capitol today, urging final passage of the bill banning smoking in most public facilities. Among those speaking was a cancer survivor.
I was diagnosed with a smoker's throat cancer. My doctor said, in his opinion, my cancer came from secondhand smoke. I've yet to have my first cigarette, but I live with the damage, and I pay the price every day. 2 of my fellow flight attendants had also discovered their cancers shortly after the birth of their babies. Neither one of them survived to watch their children grow up. I'm the 1 out of 3 of us still alive to warn other people that secondhand smoke is not worth dying over.
Senator Don Thomas, the author of Senate Bill 90, who is also a doctor, says secondhand smoke is not just a health concern, it has economic repercussions as well.
It's extremely costly to the state, over $400 million a year in Medicaid alone, and the tax burden is great. Loss in productivity is great. Every pack of cigarettes smoke costs us $7.18, about equally divided in lost productivity and medical costs.
Senate Bill 90 has passed out of the Senate and is currently in the House Health and Human Services Committee.
Those supporting and opposing a bill that would set a 10-day window in which local school systems can start their school year made their voices heard today at a House Education Subcommittee. Lawmakers Chris Knight joins us live from the Capitol with more. Chris.
Well, David, House Bill 285 would require public school systems to set a start date no earlier than the last Monday in August and no later than the Wednesday after Labor Day. Subcommittee members heard testimony from those for and against the bill.
I support this legislation. We would like to see the dates of school standardized so that we can provide the proper summer experience for our children. Presently, the dates are so scattered with all the counties in the state. We're affected greatly by that, and it cuts into our summer experience, and of course, takes away from what we have camp for the kids.
I think it's a good bill for education in the state. I've been giving exams for 25 years to students in middle school and high school, and with exams now being given at the end of December, what I'm seeing is a frenzy between Thanksgiving and Christmas as teachers try and cram it all in at the last minute to finish up curriculum and to give final exams. And the students, their minds are elsewhere. They're thinking about parties, and they're thinking about gifts, and they're wishing they were elsewhere. I think that if we come back in January and have a little time to review and get their acts together, the exam grades actually might be a little bit stronger.
The Georgia PTA does not support this legislation. We believe that the school calendar and millage rates and textbooks, many other decisions should be based on local decisions, that you do not need the state making and mandating this kind of decision, that children, which is the most important thing to us, are better served by the calendars being decided in their local communities, closer to meeting the needs of each of the individual children around the state.
House Bill 285 received a D pass from the subcommittee. The bill will now go before the full House Education Committee. Reporting live, I'm Chris Knight for Lawmakers.
Thanks, Chris.
Georgians for Open Government rallied at the Capitol today to protest House Bill 218. The proposed legislation would restrict access to economic meetings between the state and prospective businesses.
We are here today to protest the secrecy in government legislation that is going through the General Assembly right now. The bill I'm particularly looking at is House Bill 218, which has passed the House and is now pending in the Senate, and that would shield from the public records and meetings dealing with economic development. So just to give you a real-life example, if there's going to be a landfill coming up in a community, the community would not have access to that information until negotiations between the local government and the private business were complete.
We think that that bill insulates the public from their government. It's would allow the government to operate in secret. You know, information about economic development or other issues is the people's business, and if it's their government, they ought to know what their government is doing. So it's very important that we take a strong, hard look on this at this bill. I think we're making progress in stopping it. 218 would keep the people's business away from the people.
House Bill 218 is currently tabled in the Senate and could come to the floor at any time.
Georgia legislators will now have a reference manual to turn to for questions about children in foster care. Emory University's Barton Child Law and Policy Clinic, with funding from organizations like Georgia Power and the Blank Foundation, created this manual in hopes of improving the lives of Georgia's 14,000 child victims of abuse and neglect.
The Barton Child Law and Policy Clinic started working on this manual in 2002, and it was recommended by several people working within the system and externally to the system that it was very difficult to find clear information about what is required by the system in terms of the state's responsibilities towards children.
Titled Georgia's Responsibilities Towards Children in Foster Care, a Reference Manual, the publication integrates federal and state statutes, court decisions, state regulations, agency policies, and local practice in a single reference document.
Our students are setting up individual meetings with all of the legislators to deliver the manual, explain how easy it is to use using the index, and how they might use it for constituent questions. Following that, we will be distributing it by mail to all the juvenile court judges, child advocate attorneys, other folks within the state. It's available for free download on our website at www.childwelfare.net, and then for a small fee, you can receive a hard copy from us.
The author of this manual is Danette Jocelyn Gaw, an attorney with the firm Wimberly & Lawson. A copy was placed on every legislator's desk Wednesday morning.
Well, this afternoon, State Democratic Chairman Bobby Kahn held a press conference at the Capitol on the front steps to express his disappointment with the current version of the governor's ethics bill. Kahn said House Bill 48, which passed out of the House Ethics Committee yesterday, lacks any real reform.
Governor Perdue and Speaker Richardson are the two chief architects of the new dark ages of ethics and open government in Georgia. They seem to believe that they will govern best if they lock people out, all the while talking a good game on ethics but doing nothing. What are they hiding? If they have their way, the people of Georgia will never know. Welcome to the new Georgia.
Democratic leadership was in control in the state of Georgia for 134 years, and in that time they didn't see fit to introduce any ethics reform or ethics legislation in the state. The Republicans are in control now, and we're going to do something about that. And we've got a lot of good measures that are in this bill, and we hope to see it pass the floor tomorrow.
They're really not doing anything. It's a pathetic effort, and they promised they would do it, and they're not living up to it.
Kahn added that the Democrats tried to put provisions back into the bill that would allow the State Ethics Commission to investigate conflicts of interest. House Bill 48 is expected to be on the House floor as soon as tomorrow.
Governor Perdue's tourism marketing legislation is ready for him to sign. The Senate today agreed to House changes to Senate Bill 125.
This is a bill where we combine all the halls of fame and the authorities under the economic development umbrella so that we can market it properly. Well, the House made an administrative change that we overlooked here, and that was to bring the people of those departments as well. So the employees have been moved to the Department of Economic Development also.
The vote to agree with the House was 51-0. Senate Bill 125 now goes to the governor.
The Senate State and Local Government Committee passed a bill today that would reform the process a school board must go through if it wants to use eminent domain to build a new school. Chairman John Weil sponsors Senate Bill 276, which he says was inspired by the plight of a family in his district.
Currently in Cobb County, Georgia, in my district, where two elderly citizens of Cobb County who have been on the land out in West Cobb County have a 100-acre farm that they've maintained. The Cobb County Board of Education, notwithstanding the fact that there's land available for purchase nearby, and actually the county commission has offered to give them land to build a high school and a middle school, they have chosen to take and condemn the land of these elderly individuals without due consideration for the ability to purchase land or take the land from the county. I just think it's wrong that condemnation seems to be in my school board's situation the first choice as opposed to the last choice.
Under Senate Bill 276, a school board would have to hold 3 public hearings to use eminent domain. One of those meetings would have to be at night, and the school board could not condemn the land if there was land available for sale within 3 miles of the site in question. The bill passed with 1 opposing vote.
The Senate today passed Governor Perdue's Slam Spam Email Act aimed at controlling fraudulent emails, but Senator David Edelman said the bill doesn't do much.
The people of Georgia can't really expect the passage of this law to materially reduce the amount of spam in this state, can they?
This is a very tough bill that gives additional tools both to ISPs, to small business owners, to our prosecuting authorities, and to the Attorney General. And I believe it's certainly it won't solve the entire problem, but I think it's an important part of the solution to the problem.
Senator, further yield?
Certainly.
I get a lot of spam, and I suppose many Georgians get a lot of spam, and I'm real excited about this bill. And I just want you to tell me on behalf of the governor's office just how much less spam we can expect as a result of this important part of his legislative agenda.
What this bill does is give tools. It gives tools to small business. It gives tools to our prosecuting authorities. It gives tools to the Internet service providers, tools that we think can be very effective in controlling spam. I can't tell you how those tools will be used.
Senator, further yield?
Certainly.
Senator, it isn't true. This is really just a big nothing. This is just for show. This is not going to reduce the amount of spam.
Then I invite you to vote no.
Senate Bill 62, the Slam Spam Email Act, passed 50-3 and goes to the House.
A group of faith-based organizations says it's time for legislators to pass Senate Resolution 49. That amendment would allow the state to fund faith-based programs that provide services to the community. Lawmakers' Chris Knight has more.
A song of encouragement echoes through the walls of the Capitol from members of the Georgia Faith-Based and Community Initiatives Task Force.
So we're here with an annual event whereby we salute faith-based organizations, and in conjunction with that, we're working to try to pass Governor Perdue's faith-based constitutional amendment.
Senate Resolution 49, or Governor Perdue's Faith and Family Services Amendment, would allow the state to give funds to faith-based organizations that provide services for the community. Governor Perdue's Faith and Family Services Amendment failed to receive the 2/3 votes necessary to pass when it was debated on the Senate floor earlier this session. But the amendment will be up for reconsideration, which means it's still not too late for the amendment to pass. So that's why this group is rallying legislators to support the amendment.
And if we could allow state funds to be granted to these organizations in a legal way without a prohibition in the Constitution, then these programs could be even more effective.
We have lots of children's homes, institutions to help the mentally impaired and handicapped people, and so I'm very much in favor of continuing to provide those services, which, as this article states, we can do at a much more cost-effective rate, and there's also a whole lot of human compassion in it.
Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Chris Knight.
The House moved one step closer to giving residents of Sandy Springs a vote on becoming a city. House Bills 36 and 37 both must pass to allow for the local referendum. The bills passed out of the House Governmental Affairs Committee at an early morning meeting. There were no dissenting votes. The sponsor of the two bills, Representative Wendell Willard, says he is encouraged by the vote. The bills now move to the House Rules Committee. Representative Willard says he hopes the full House will take up the bills as early as next Thursday.
Governor Sonny Perdue signed a proclamation declaring today Green Day and recognizing Georgia's environmental issues. Environmental advocates are asking legislators to oppose several bills that they say could threaten the state's water, air, and land resources. Senate Bill 190, which addresses court challenges on land development, is one of these bills.
What Senate Bill 190 does is it removes that stay provision and allows the project, when the permit is appealed, it allows the project to continue to be built. The environmental destruction happens right away, and those are, we can't get that back. You just can't get the trees back. You can't, and the chances of a judge ordering someone to tear down a factory that's already part way up or all the way up is very unlikely.
Senate Bill 190 is currently in Senate rules awaiting assignment to the Senate calendar.
The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has granted Georgia an additional $1.7 million to help care for the homeless. Governor Perdue and Department of Community Affairs Commissioner Mike Beatty welcome HUD Assistant Secretary Carolyn Peoples for the check presentation.
2.5 years ago, when the President kicked off the initiative to end chronic homelessness in America, my first reaction was doubt. But seeing the progress made here in Georgia and the other states around the country, I believe that we will achieve our goal.
The goal is to end homelessness in Georgia over the next 10 years. Governor Perdue says the right pieces are in place to make that happen.
We talk oftentimes about the partnership that exists between our federal partners such as HUD, our state partners such as the Department of Community Affairs, and our local partners in their own efforts to help the ownership society along by reducing homelessness.
This is important because we really leveraged about maybe $230,000 of state dollars to about $10 million in federal dollars that will go directly to solve the chronically homelessness issue in our state.
This is going to enable us to provide about 27 new units of housing for those folks who traditionally are slipping between the cracks.
Now, with the additional $1.7 million, HUD's check to Georgia, as you may have seen on the check, totaled $26.8 million.
Well, March is National Women's History Month, and Georgia's female legislators gathered today in commemoration. Lawmakers Ashley Poland has the details.
Women leaders from around Georgia celebrated at the Capitol this morning in honor of Women's History Month. Influential women from across the state wore hats commemorating 85 years of women's suffrage. Secretary of State Kathy Cox, Georgia's first female Secretary of State, delivered the keynote address.
Today, my favorite statistic, when women make up 54.8% of the registered voters in Georgia, and even better, while we are 54.8% of the registered voters, last November, women were 56% of the actual voters in Georgia. The proper and expected place for a woman was in the home, and only in the home. But boy, have things changed. And today, as we like to say, yes, a woman's place is in the House and the Senate.
The women hope to continue being an influential voice for women throughout the state, reminding Georgians,
in the paraphrased words of the mayor of this great city of Atlanta, the Honorable Shirley Franklin, you made them leaders and they made you proud.
Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Ashley Poland.
Current and historical female role models will continue to be recognized throughout the month of March.
Lawmakers will not be broadcast tomorrow because of the Georgia High School Basketball Championships on GPB, but you can watch us online. We will stream Lawmakers live on our website tomorrow night at gpb.org. If you missed any part of this broadcast, tune in when Lawmakers is rebroadcast tomorrow morning at 5:30 on GPB. Lawmakers will not be seen Monday through Wednesday of next week because of the Georgia General Assembly will be in recess. Lawmakers will return with all the latest from under the Gold Dome Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. Now stay tuned for Georgia Outdoors as that program explores birding. Georgia Outdoors is coming up next here on GPB.
And that's our broadcast for this, the 27th Legislative Day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Wendy Lawson.
And I'm David Zelski. For all of us here at Lawmakers, good night.
Good night.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.